Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I have one book today. I only have Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. Simple Ways to Keep the Little Things from Taking Over Your Life by Richard Carlson, PhD. And I love this book. My mother had this book years ago. I haven't read it all the way through, I don't think ever in its entirety. So I'm going through and I am, just picking at random ones. Now I went in here the last time and I looked and I thought that you had to read them all in a row, but I don't think that's the case. So I'm just gonna pick up, because like tonight I was looking at them and there were ones in there about like reach out with a loving hand and all these. So I don't think you have to read them in a row. So, or in a row, in order. I don't think there's any order to them. So I'm just gonna randomly pick one and see where the universe is speaking to us. See the Innocence, chapter 36. Let me mark down that I have read this one. Okay. For many people, one of the most frustrating aspects of life is not being able to understand other people's behavior. We see them as guilty instead of innocent. It's tempting to focus on people's seemingly irrational behavior, their comments, actions, mean-spirited acts, selfish behavior, and get extremely frustrated. If we focus on behavior too much, it can seem like other people are making us miserable. But as I once heard Wayne Dyer, he's another motivational speaker and writer, but as I once heard Wayne Dyer sarcastically suggest in a lecture, round up all the people who are making you miserable and bring them to me. I will treat them as the counselor and you'll get better. Obviously, this is absurd. It's true that other people do weird things, who doesn't, but we are the ones getting upset. So we are the ones who need to change. I'm not talking about accepting, ignoring, or advocating violence or any other deviant behavior. I'm merely talking about learning to be less bothered by the actions of others. Seeing the Innocence is a powerful tool for transformation. That means when someone is acting in a way that we don't like, the best strategy for dealing with that person is to distance ourselves from the behavior, to look beyond it, so that we can see the innocence and where the behavior is coming from. Very often, this slight shift in our thinking immediately puts us into a state of compassion. Occasionally, I work with people who are pressuring me to hurry up. Often their technique for getting me to hurry along is obnoxious, even insulting. If I focus on the words they use, the tone of their voices, and the urgency of their messages, I can get annoyed, even angry in my responses. I see them as guilty. However, if I remember the urgency I feel when I'm in a hurry to do something, it allows me to see the innocence in their behavior. Underneath even the most annoying behavior is a frustrated person who is crying out for compassion. The next time, and hopefully from now on, when someone acts in a strange way, look for the innocence in his behavior. If you're compassionate, it won't be hard to see. When you see the innocence, the same things that have always frustrated you no longer do. And when you're not frustrated by the actions of others, it's a lot easier to stay focused on the beauty of life. This is a really, really fantastic meditation or reading for me for the last year. The things that I have been focusing on, It's interesting to me. One of the questions I get a lot is when I talk about distancing yourself from toxicity and removing toxicity from your life and things like that, right? And people often ask me, well, what do you do if that's a family member? And I think this is a really, a really well thought out response to that. That with family members that we have, if they're toxic or chaotic or, they just bring a lot of toxicity to our lives, and it's like, oh God, I don't want to deal with, Aunt so-and-so or, whatever. Or my sister or my mom or whoever it could be, right? Like I hear a lot of people, I get a lot of messages from people about their mother-in-laws, but I'm blessed to have had a fantastic mother-in-law. We don't really argue about things like that. But if whoever it is, okay, that's bringing you some kind of like chaos or toxicity in your life, maybe it's not about getting rid of that person in your life, because from a family point of view, you really can't. If it's a coworker, you can't really just be done with them. You have to interact with them. But maybe it is about seeing the innocence in their actions, Maybe it is about looking it through, it's like for me, it reminds me of the Atticus Finch, quote where he says to Scout, you don't truly know a person until you stand on their front porch and walk around in their shoes for a bit, and I think that's really what it's about. It's about seeing where that other person is coming from. I think we live in such selfish times that it's always about me, like, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what it's like for me. You don't know this. And it's always this finger pointing thing that we do, right? But we don't really grow from that. We don't really ever grow out of selfishness. I think in looking at how other people are mirrors for our own behaviors, I think is one way that we grow. I think by seeing the love in other people. I was talking about this last night in my vlog, because I'm currently reading Proof of Heaven by, what's his name, Eben Alexander, and it's this book about this, I talked about it yesterday in this video, but it's about, so it's the auxiliary book for February over here. The first one is Make Your Bed, but it's about this neuroscientist who contracts this very rare E. coli meningitis disease, like 1 in 10,000 people get, and he goes into a coma for 7 days and basically has a near-death experience. And so it's him explaining this near-death experience when he really didn't believe in those things before. And it's interesting as he's talking about like the universe beyond, so to speak, and he's talking about it all being like flooded with this language of love. And every inspirational or motivational book that I read is always from a point of love and compassion. Love and compassion, love and compassion, love and compassion, love and compassion. It's just over and over and over. And I was saying that I think the resounding message that I am supposed to get in 2020 is, whatever I do, whoever I interact with, whatever frustrates me, however I work through the pain and the suffering in my life or whatever's going on, I have to do it from a point of love and compassion always, you know? And if I find myself getting, you know, off the track, I have to find myself back to the way of love, you know? I think that's hard. I think like if we asked ourselves like, are you a loving person? I think most of us would say, yeah, I'm a loving person. Is everything that you do, is everything that you see seen through loving eyes? Well, no, I can't really say that that's true, you know? Sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, karma got you, didn't it? You know what I mean? But like, that's not loving. We wouldn't wish that on somebody if we were loving, you know? So I think it's all about looking at things through loving eyes. And I love this idea of looking at, you know, the innocence in that person's actions, that maybe it isn't as manipulative as it seems. Maybe it's not as calculated as it seems. Maybe it's not as nasty and negative as it seems. Maybe it is just, you know, like, have you ever, like, dealt with somebody and they just like, you get in like this World War III argument with them, and the reality is you find out that that morning they got some really bad news? Or have you ever just had a really off day and it's because something really bad happened to you that morning or the night before, you're just really stressed out or whatever, and you don't really have any good excuses for it? It just is like, it is what it is, you know? And I think that's what it is. I think it's about maybe seeing that other people can have lives that are as tough as our own, you know? So anyway, I think it's a great meditation. Okay. Let's go right on. I like this one. It's choose, because I talk about this on here. Choose being kind over being right. I'm going to read this one too. Chapter 37. As I first introduced in strategy number 12, well, maybe you are supposed to read these in a row. Oh well. As I first introduced in strategy number 12, you are given many opportunities to choose between being kind and being right. You have chances to point out to someone their mistakes, things they could or should have done differently, ways they can improve. You have chances to correct people, privately as well as in front of others. I really think, like, to correct somebody in private is really showing somebody respect. I have issues with people that correct people in front of other people. It's been done to me and it doesn't feel very nice, you know? You have chances to correct people privately as well as in front of others. What all these opportunities amount to are chances to make someone else feel bad and yourself feel bad in the process. Without getting too psychoanalytical about it, the reason we are tempted to put others down, correct them, or show them how we're right and they're wrong is that our ego mistakenly believes that if we point out how someone else is wrong, we must be right, and therefore, we will feel better. In actuality, however, if you pay attention to the way you feel after you put someone down, you'll notice that you feel worse than before the put down. Your heart, the compassionate part of you, knows that it's impossible to feel better at the expense of someone else. I don't know that I think that's true about everybody. You know, in all honesty, like I've met some people that just, I think they lack empathy and compassion for other people. And maybe that's because really they lack any kind of self-love. I don't know. Luckily, the opposite is true. When your goal is to build people up, to make them feel better, to share in their joy, you too reap the rewards of their positive feelings. I do believe that. The next time you have the chance to correct someone, even if their facts are a little off, resist the temptation. Instead, ask yourself, what do I really want out of this interaction? Chances are what you want is a peaceful interaction where all parties have feeling good, or leave feeling good. Each time you resist being right and instead choose kindness, you'll notice a peaceful feeling within. Recently, my wife and I were discussing a business idea that had turned out really well. I was talking about my idea, clearly taking credit for our success. Chris, in her usual loving manner, allowed me to have the glory. Later that day, I remember that the idea was actually her idea, not mine. Whoops. When I called her to apologize, it was obvious to me that she cared more for my joy than she did her own need to take credit. She said that she enjoys seeing me happy and that it doesn't matter whose idea it was. Do you see why she's so easy to love? That is somebody that I think that you, like for me, I look up to, you know, because that to me is just like, that's wisdom beyond, you know, that you just like immediately act that way. Don't confuse this strategy with being a wimp or not standing up for what you believe in. I'm not suggesting that it's not okay for you to be right, only that if you insist on being right, there is often a price to pay, your inner peace. In order to be a person filled with equanimity, you must choose kindness over being right most of the time. The best place to start is with the next person you speak to. I really like that. You know, there's this recovery saying, it's, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? And almost all of my sponsors have said it to me at one point or another, because I am somebody that has fought most of my life for the need to be right. And I think what I have learned is that my peace and serenity is more important to me than my need to be right. Do I continue to not pick my battles well, which is actually one of the meditations in here I saw. It would be so funny if that was the next one, wouldn't it? But do I find myself not picking my battles well and sometimes going into being like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, you know? Yes. I fall into that all the time. And I'm really thankful today that, you know, I have a toolbox of skills and tools that I can use, that I can, you know, call my sponsor up today on the phone and I can be like, you know, but I'm right. And she'll say, but does it matter? Like, you're literally handing over your peace and serenity to the situation that it just doesn't matter if you're right or you're not. Who cares, you know? You know, like, you know, at the end of the day, your higher power knows. What does it matter? And I think that's important. You know, I think many of us are seeking validation and acceptance for being right. But I think what that really is seeking after love. Because if somebody admits to us that we are right, then that means that you're better than, and it all goes back to the stuff that this reading was just talking about, you know? When in reality, that work has to be done from within. We're the ones that have to, you know, make ourselves feel better, make ourselves feel loved, realize that if we're seeking outwardly something of what being right will do for us, then that's something that we have to do the work on internally. You know, that's where we have to take a look at ourselves and say, well, where do I not feel like I am good enough that I have to make a point to everybody else how right I am all the time? You know, that really says so much more about us than it does to somebody else if we're doing that. The other thing I've learned in the last year, and I cannot say this enough over here, you know, somebody asked me what's the most valuable lesson I learned in the last year, and this is probably it, is that I can sit and I can point my finger at other people, and I can tell on those people, and I can tell you, if you only knew what those people did to me, and if you only knew this, and if you only knew that, right? And that feels good. It does in the immediate. And if I told you the truth and I told you, like, let me show you, let me tell you what happened, right? And then you might believe me, right? And I would be right in the situation. But I can't work on myself while I'm constantly focused on all of these other people. I can only focus on me, and there's only a small amount of time that I have on this earth. I would rather give that time to myself. I mean, selfishly, I really would, and improve myself for myself, but also for the people that are around me, because I want to be a person that's filled with peace and love, compassion, and, you know, forgiveness and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be some angry, bitter, miserable person that is constantly wanting to tell on somebody else. That's no way to live. I have lived that way, and I was not happy. Today, I would rather be happy, joyous, and free. I would rather be filled with peace and serenity. It's much easier for me to look at a situation and go, what is my part in that? What can I fix? And let me move on. Than the need to constantly tell on somebody else and fight for the right to be right. It just is not that important. It just really isn't, you know? But yet, I still fall back into that at times, and I have to remember that I'm a human being, and I'm gonna, you know, continue to fault and make mistakes, but I hope that I get back quicker, you know, than I used to, and I think I do. I think that I'm more focused today on the need to have peace and serenity in my life, and I wish that for you as well. You know, it's just kind of like a trained action that you have to do, is that when you are presented these situations where you feel like you want to tell on somebody or be right, you have to pull back and go, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't really matter, you know? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed those readings. I hope you guys are having a great night tonight. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.